Well, good morning, everyone. And how are you? And once again, welcome to another live this morning. And I hope you're having a wonderful start to your day. We certainly are. And we love to say hello to our dear friends as we do the roll call this morning. And hello, Andrea. I don't know the secret you have, but you're there at the top. Patricia, Kevin, and Lucille, Nativity, and Rosalinda, Niagara Falls, good morning to you. And Janice from Brampton. Patricia from where? Patricia, Florida. Georgie, Halifax, Nova Scotia. Marlene, good morning, everyone. Wendy from Aylmer. And Catherine from Springdale, Newfoundland. Mary is saying hello to her friends, Dave and Helga. Amber from New Jersey. Fran, our dear friend from Orangeville. Lori from Cambridge. April, good morning. And Dennis from Norwich, good morning to you. Lynn from Aurora. And Karen from Innisville. Cheryl, West Virginia. Sherry, Mississauga. Judy, Newfoundland. Gail, Pennsylvania. Yvonne, Petawawa. Ilana's from New York and saying hello. Darlene, good morning from Alberta. Danny Lay, Iron Bridge. Linda, oh, those Lindas. New Brunswick. Millica from Stouffville, Ontario. Paula Joe, how is you? Suzanne from Edmonton, and Nellie, how is you? And Karen is from Sault Ste. Marie and saying hello. Madalena, Laval, Quebec. Patricia, Sylvette, bonjour. Laurie, how are you from Alberta? Bright and early in the morning. And Annie is in lively. Claudette. And Maureen, how are you, Maureen? From Boca Raton, Florida. Sandy, Vancouver, Washington. Marianne is in London, Ontario. Donna, Newfoundland. Dave, how is you? Kevin says the scroll's not working in. I don't know. Heidi, Nativity's asking how I'm doing. I'm doing great. Donna, thanks for asking. Heather, Miramichi, and Margaret's from Lakelet, and Norma from Burlington, Dave from Muskoka, and Sandy, she's saying it's raining in Washington State. Kristen, Saskatchewan. Nick is here from our staff. Diane, Danny, and saying hello to everybody. Hi, Sue from Bolton. Sedalia, Vancouver. Well, welcome to the program. We love you. Vancouver. Sandy from, did I say this already? From Fergus Falls. Rita, Judy, Mara, and Cindy. Guys, okay, got to get going. Helga and Dave. Okay, so Dave and Helga and anyway, Rhoda and Daphne. Maria from Ottawa. Okay. Guys, let's talk about, hi, Lise. Etta. Supposed to snow here today. Where are you, Etta? Carol, Mount Pearl, Newfoundland, and Brenda. We still got lots of snow here that hasn't gone away yet. Okay, Gloria said she's in the clouds. Gail, now listen, okay? There's a couple of new studies out, okay? One of them here, okay, and actually it's what they did. They compared low carb, not no carb, but very low carb, 20 to 50 grams a day of carbs. So that's not a lot of carbohydrates, okay? They compared the low carb diet in versus the Mediterranean diet. Okay, I sort of got, when my wife's Italian, so when you talk about the Mediterranean diet, they're not heavy in carbohydrates. Okay? But this one here, they call the Mediterranean diet, it's higher in carbohydrates. But is it really the Mediterranean diet? I don't see that. From a person who lives with a woman who comes from the Mediterranean diet in Italy. Anyway, their study is showing when you lower the carbs. So this first study is out of Australia. And they're saying their conclusions were when you're on a low carb diet and you actually go into ketosis. Okay? So what's ketosis? You're changing fuel. Your body is burning ketones rather than sugars, carbs. Okay? You're not burning glucose, you're burning fat. Why? Because you've lowered your glucose, you've lowered your carbohydrates so much. And people don't realize how many carbs they do eat in a day. But here's the study out of Australia, and there's a couple of one I want to bring to you. Okay? One of them was on getting rid of fatty liver. What diet works the best? Well, my students, they know this. Okay? They know this. But the world don't know it. And in Australia, they said, well, the lower the carbs, the more you empty the liver. Hello? Yeah. Because it's carbohydrates, especially the sugars and the crappy carbs and the high fructose corn syrup that creates fatty liver in the first place. So the Australian study, they measured fatty liver and how to empty it, how to get rid of fatty liver, and the diet that won was a very low carb diet versus a higher carb diet. I'm not surprised by the result. I don't know if they were, but I'm not. I've been saying that for a long time. Your liver is the Costco parking lot. What do I mean by that? Well, go by Costco anytime during their store hours, and the parking lot is full all the time. So your liver, when you're a carbaholic, your liver is full of fat because carbs get converted to glucose, and glucose gets converted to fat. Fat don't make you fat. Carbs make you fat. And I'm talking about specifically fatty liver. Okay? So again, I mean, I'm glad they're doing these studies. I'm glad. I'm happy about it because it just confirms, guys, what we already know about how your body operates. So you lower those carbohydrates, and this is not even a no-carb diet. This is not even the reset. One of the biggest reasons for the reset, the metabolic reset, is to get rid of fatty liver, which is often silent. People don't even know they have it. The liver, the Costco parking lot is getting all packed up with fat, and that's not good for you. And what happens in Vegas doesn't stay in Vegas. Your liver is not Las Vegas. What happens there don't stay there. It can have a major effect on your heart, a major effect on your brain, a major effect on your kidneys. Your liver is a very important organ. You don't want it to be full of fat. One of the things that happens when you're full of fat in the liver, you can't even detox properly because that fat is an attractor, by the way, of toxins. Your liver is the greatest detox organ that you got. That in the brain. Okay, so that was one study. Okay, that's out of Australia. Low carb, not no carb, low carb, beats the Mediterranean diet when it comes to fatty liver. Study number one. Study number two, this is 23 studies. It's in PubMed. 23 studies. Okay, let me read the headline. Insulin-lowering diets, okay, in metastatic cancer. Now we're talking cancer. Insulin-lowering diets in metastatic cancer. Results are promising. That's the headline in PubMed. Looking at 23 studies, they lower insulin. When you lower insulin, you lower a cancer growth hormone. What did I talk about all the time? Serial killers, 2 hormones that want you dead. Insulin, okay, should have a part-time job. And cortisol should have a part-time job. When you give them a full-time job, it promotes growth, cancer growth. Big time. Because insulin is a growth hormone. Again, it's on your side till it's not. So when you lower insulin in metastatic cancer, what does that mean? Cancer that spreads, it helps. Well, hello. Diets, because medicine, they just never look at diet when it comes to cancer. They don't do it. The only thing they might say, don't eat red meat. And we talked about this so often. They're never into prevention of cancer. They're into detection of cancer. Prevention, Like go for testing, that's prevention. That's not prevention, that's detection. And I'm not against detecting. But isn't it better to prevent? So even before the metastatic cancer, I was saying this the other day at the conference in Tennessee. Well, because someone asked me, like, their better half has breast cancer. What should they do? I said, well, one, start with food. Eliminate all sugar. Cancer hates steak. The audience was taken aback by that. I'm telling you, cancer can't feed on steak. Cancer hates steak because cancer needs fermentation and it needs sugar. It's ravenous. We've known that since 1928 on the Warburg effect, who studied cancer cells, and he said cancer cells are renegades. They're like teenagers. They feast on sugar. PubMed, 23 studies they looked at, insulin-lowering diets in metastatic cancer. The results are promising. You already got cancer. They're looking at metastatic cancer. The results are promising even with the diet. Do that diet way before cancer raises its ugly head, guys. Okay? Okay. Let me see here. I had another study. Coming up. I got to get to it. Okay. Oh, again, on the low carb diet. Okay, here's another one for mental health. Okay, for mental health. Very effective in mental health. Okay? And guys, let me again, okay? Let me explain this again, just to give you a little bit more of the physiology. What happens, okay? If you keep your diet, this is, average, because everybody's a little different. And I tell people, look, when you're eating low carb, you don't have to measure to see if you're into ketosis, okay? I know people will get ketone sticks and measure their urine. I used to do it in my office, but I used to tell my patients, look, don't give yourself a migraine, peeing in a cup and then checking your urine every 5 minutes, okay? If you go low carb, you don't have to go no carb, but you got to go low carb, okay? If you do that, your body changes fuel. You will burn fatty acids, ketone fatty acids, okay? And we call that going into ketosis. Now, medicine, and I've said this to you many a time, medicine, they can't stand ketosis because they don't understand it. The only thing they learn in medical school is ketoacidosis. You don't want to go into ketosis. That's ketoacidosis. That's dangerous. Says who? Yes, ketoacidosis is dangerous, but that has nothing to do with your diet. You go into ketoacidosis when you're going into sepsis, when you're on your way out, you're dying. A diabetic has to be very careful not to go into ketoacidosis. Their blood, which is tightly regulated, not only for your sugar, guys. Your blood is so tightly regulated for your pH. Your blood won't allow you to go into acidosis because it's very dangerous. So they mix that up with ketosis. But I don't even like going into the weeds, guys. When you eat eggs, meat, and cheese, and you have a few vegetables and a little bit of fruit, your body is now burning the right fuel. Okay? Your body has no choice but to burn fat, which is logs on the fire and not just paper and twigs. And how it works, let's talk about the brain just for a minute. I'm just going to talk about the brain, okay? You're changing fuels. That's what the metabolic reset is all about. I've been preaching this, guys, for so many years. Change fuels. Pretend you're a jet. Go to the airport. I flew in an airplane last week to Tennessee. Okay. I watched them fill. I was at the window, at the gate, and the truck came, and they were pouring fuel into the jet. I didn't go, I wonder if they're using what I put in my car, 87 octane. Or my truck, 87 octane. And you have to mortgage your house to fill up the vehicle. Anyway, that's another issue. The plane is using jet fuel, which is 99% octane. When your brain gets that kind of jet fuel, when you eat eggs, meat, and cheese, and you lower your carbs. Okay? You know what happens in your brain? Okay? The liver converts the fatty acids into ketones, and ketones cross your blood-brain barrier, the northern border, into the brain, and it's like miracle grow for your brain because there's an enzyme in your brain called BDNF. Miracle grow. It renews, regenerates, replenishes your neurons, your brain cells. Miracle grow because it's the right fuel for your brain. That's why I always say, call me fathead. It's a compliment. Your body is burning fat in the brain. And it decreases. So 1, miracle grow. 2, it decreases inflammation. Its neuroinflammation goes down with the right fuel. Carbs, sugars, increase inflammation in the brain. What do carbs do? They decrease BDNF. Miracle grow. You don't get miracle grow in your brain when it's the wrong fuel for that, for your brain. 3, how do we know this? Okay? How do we know this? Because go back to the 1920s. I talked to you about cancer, the 1920s. What a great decade, because we learned about the Warburg effect. But here's something else we learned. In the 1920s, that you could cure epilepsy with a low carb diet when the brain was burning ketones. That's what they did. And there's still some places today, I had patients that were put on a ketotic diet, very, very low carbs, almost none, for their epilepsy. Unfortunately, doctors try meds. Everything is meds instead of food. But in the 1920s, we found that out, that you could actually cure epilepsy with a high-fat, low-carb diet. The same mechanism that controls seizures, epilepsy, is the same mechanism that controls, this is so important, guys, your mood. That's why studies confirm this. I mentioned this on the weekend. And Dr. McEwen is talking about low-carb diets in Chicago. I didn't even know that. She didn't even tell me that. But I saw that yesterday. And Doc, you know all about this. When you lower your carbs, your body will burn fat as fuel, ketones. And ketones, when your body burns that, your brain loves it. Decreases inflammation, and it works on the same centers, the same mechanism where they cured seizures. They're finding out that energy, if you give the brain the right energy, you're changing the mood of a person. The depression and anxiety gets better. And sometimes completely reversed in clinical depression with food. But it's not what the world thinks, because the world, if you had a test to the world and to medicine, moderation. Well, everything in moderation. Nah, not moderation, elimination. Eliminate the sugar. Eliminate or lower the carbs big time, because now your body has no choice. It has no choice but to burn the better fuel. You're getting jet fuel. And your brain will say, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm not swimming in an ocean of bad fuel. Because that's what happens to the 93%. It's more than that. But 93% of people, they eat too many carbs. They consume too much sugar. And things that turn into sugar rapidly. Bread and pasta and cereals and frosted flakes. I see that Japan banned frosted flakes. Hey, my name is Tony. You just be careful there. I'm Tony the Tiger. They're great. Nah, not so much. Japan is right. They banned it. I shocked. You go in the middle aisles of your grocery store and look at all the cereal boxes. It gives me a migraine, by the way. I said, people are eating that stuff? It's the wrong fuel. It's the wrong fuel. Anywho. So, change fuels. Metastatic cancer, fatty liver, epilepsy, we already knew about since the 1920s, and anxiety and depression. Change fuels. How many times have you heard me say that? The whole idea is fuel. Is fuel. What kind of fuel are you using? Now, I know you guys, you know better. I remember, in the follow-up sessions, okay, with my patients, because you came once, well, you had to have follow-up because I had to redo all your testing, right? And sometimes it was many times over. I would follow up with a patient because they had a chronic disorder and we wanted to stay on top of it. Anyway, I just don't know how many times, and I mean thousands upon thousands, of second-time visitors or third or whatever, and they go, Doc, I never knew how many carbs I was consuming before you changed my fuel. I had no idea. I thought I was eating right. Yeah. Well, I said, listen, isn't it wonderful to understand your body and how it operates? That's the problem with medicine. Why do you think they got all those big terms? Like, do you think that's just, that's to keep the layperson, even today. I have people, people listen to the podcast or whatever, and they go, I tried to talk to my doctor, and they said, you're not a doctor. Why are you asking me questions like that? Stick to your lane. Me, doctor. You, not. Don't ask no questions. What do you know? Oh, I love this format. That's why I love radio. But this is even better. It gets out to many more people. I think we're up to about 5 million downloads on the podcast. Well, you know what? People are getting educated. And you know what, guys? Education is key because God gave you a brain. Use it. Well, it will work better if you eat the right food. Okay. Okay, guys. Anywho. Okay. What's Friday? Q&A. Ask your questions. Ask your questions. Lots of questions. Good. We love it. Okay? At the end of the day, almost every session I do is based on, I look at studies, but I know that somebody's asked me a question about this. What about this? And what about that? And what do you think of this? And what do you think of that? And, question and answer Friday. Okay? Okay, I just had to breathe there for a second. Okay, we love you guys. Talk to you soon.